Hello, welcome to ISE Show TV. My name is Paul Milligan. Thank you for joining us for the latest panel discussion from ISE 2020. This one today is entitled How Big an Opportunity is Smart Building Technology for the AV Sector? Joining me today, three gentlemen very knowledgeable on that subject. Next to me is Mike Brooman from Integrators Vanti. In the middle is Danny Rogers from Integration Group AVI-SPL. And at the end is Kristian Glahn from Consultancy Group COWI. So thanks for joining us, gents. First of all, regards to smart building, I know the conference was this week at the show. Is there enough awareness out there of what these tools can do? Mike, do you think enough people know about?
In terms of the market generally?
Yes.
No, I think
I know you guys do, so I'm just wondering your perception about others.
So if you look at any technology when it gets released, it goes through kind of a section of people called innovators and then early adopters, and then you get into the kind of majorities. I think the whole smart building piece is still very much with people who believe in what it's about and are willing to. I think we're past kind of guinea pigs now. I think there are some established case studies out there. I think people generally see that it's a good idea. People understand about the kind of energy efficiency, space utilization, occupant experience splits. But I think it is early days. We've certainly had some people who we can show them a case study, but then if they want to show 5 more, for example, they just aren't out there yet. Yeah. So I think you need to have a certain level of understanding and vision as a client to be doing this stuff. The kind of majorities who want to see it, their mates who have done it before, or reports and reams of statistics. I think there's still a little way to go before we're at mass adoption.
Yeah. Danny, is there still some way to go for you?
Yeah, there's a massive way to go. What's interesting with global enterprise clients, to the point already made, is they all know they have to do something. They all know in terms of moving towards workplace transformation, moving towards smart building, wellness in the workplace, they all go hand in hand together. So that whole piece of providing a workplace that is going to retain and attract talent, is going to make people feel fulfilled in their workplace. They know they've got to do it, and understanding the reporting, analytics, consumption model they can derive from having a smart building, they need help in that sphere. So there's an understanding, but boy, do they need collective help in terms of driving it to that next level.
Kristian, I know this is a passionate subject for you, but do you feel like you're not alone, but there's not many people who share that passion?
No, I think especially if you look to the AV industry, there's very, very little awareness of what you can do if you think in terms of intelligent building. I think we're still too focused around our own discipline and not enough focused about moving up the decision chain. Look into the organizations, what can you actually obtain in an intelligent building, adding AV as one of the pieces. I think as a business we're uniquely positioned to do this, as we've been used to being the Swiss knife of everything really. AV has traditionally been knitting together everything from lighting to HVAC to whatever in terms of user interfaces. So, but we're not aware of the last steps, big steps you need to take to actually fulfill the outcomes you can have of a truly intelligent building. Yeah. So I think there's a long way to go, and there's a lot to obtain.
Yeah. Do you guys think having the knowledge now is going to give you an advantage over everyone else? Because like you said, we're still at that, not quite at the very first stage, but maybe the second stage of 4 or 5. Do you think that's going to give you guys an advantage because you have got ahead?
I think we're seeing some advantage in terms of we've just been selected for a project because we were the only master systems integrator that could actually walk the client into a building, show them it working, introduce them to the head of FM, and him tell them what a good job we've done, but also the benefits that they're seeing as an organisation. But I think the thing I always say on this stuff, and the reason that we're so kind of big advocates for openness in the smart building industry, there's a lot of buildings out there, right? Yeah. It's not like we're going to run short, and there isn't enough skill, to Kristian's point, in terms of enough people in this at the moment. So I don't think it's necessarily a huge barrier to entry. I think there's some work to overcome, but to be honest, I don't understand why more integrators aren't embracing this, because to the point of being those people who are doing that, unified experience through user interfaces, AV integrators are uniquely positioned in that kind of smart building ecosystem to actually take that approach.
Yeah. Danny, you guys have got the advantage of being a sort of global organisation. Do you think having this sort of knowledge of a smart building and the skill set of that that's going to give you an advantage over your competitors?
Yeah,
Because you can obviously roll it out on a sort of global
and we have done already, so
level.
we've already done a number of global projects, and funnily enough they've actually been coming east to west, so we feel that the east has been adopting a lot more of smart building technology, particularly in Asia, and they are now coming this way, but it's that leap to understand of what it actually brings the organisation. There's a lot of people still burying their heads in the sand and say we've already done a number of things that way, but if you are going to provide detailed analytics, you're going to talk about the consumption model. I am personally responsible for the global corporate real estate organisations around the world within my company, and we're seeing them now looking and considering smart building as an absolute de facto, because they want to know how every single part of the building is being used, how it's being consumed, and then you've got smart building technology migrating into building management technology for an overall service wrap and value. You've got to be having those conversations now in terms of plans that are maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, from a consultant's perspective.
Kristian, without running down other consultants, but did you feel that your knowledge of kind of the smart building stuff is putting you ahead in when those type of projects come up? Does that give you a leg up, an advantage?
I think absolutely, because within the consulting business, the way we've been through the entire era of being energy consumption. That's what's been the focus in smart buildings, turning off and on the lights, having automation on the heating. So that's kind of the first generation of smart buildings, being smart with energy consumption. The next wave was kind of being smart with management. So everything that could ease the need for labor to actually run a building. And with all that in mind, now the third wave, so to say, is being smart building with regard to productivity. And that's where AV comes in. That's where we've been a major part. So if you combine the knowledge of how smartness work in the two other worlds, you can actually build on from that. So I'll say that's given a huge advantage.
How have you found, if a product involves smart building technology, how have you found working with integrators in that sphere? Because we already mentioned maybe there aren't as many of those as we like.
So as a consultant, you really need to step in and take a role and responsibility for bringing together the different expertises needed, because suddenly you're working on a KNX system, and if you want to take over all the screens in the meeting rooms as the fire alarm goes and direct people, who's controlling that? Is that the AV? Is that the alarm system? And a combination of. So and if you take the general AV contractor, there's not much knowledge on that. Sure. So I think the evolution or revolution has to be either customer driven. The customer has to see a need and a benefit of doing this and then push to drive this themselves. Or I would be bold to say it's consultant led. So the consultant needs to kind of inform of the possibilities and take that discussion with the customer.
I guess in the interest of fairness, I better ask the integrators kind of the similar thing. Have you worked on a smart building project where you maybe felt the consultant was more of an AV consultant rather than someone who had knowledge of smart buildings, and that made the relationship difficult?
Well, it's interesting because I will give Kristian my card afterwards, and we can share a number of projects that we have done in that world. But I think he makes a very fair point that there's not enough breadth of AV integrators migrating into a very, very different platform, and that, having done those projects around the world with some huge household names, has been a tremendous learning curve. It's a tremendous learning curve, not just in terms of the customer consultation, but the deployment, the expectation, the adoption, to give empowerment. And here's the key: to give empowerment to the end user, that is the employee that's going into that building. We call it the experience economy, where you've got consumer driving enterprise, that I as an employee want to be able to drive where I book my seat, my registration, my visitor requirements, my food and beverage. I want that empowerment at the top of touching my fingertips and my mobile device. That's where the sea change, and that's where people have to be brave and understand if you're providing that. I mean, we're in Amsterdam and there's the Deloitte building, the Edge building just down the road. That's been voted one of the best places to work because of the environment of empowerment to the user. So to the point, I think there are integrators that are doing this. It's a different consultation methodology and program, so we have to work even closer together and share those concepts, but the buy-in is not a mid-management level. This is at C-level, driving a major investment for change within their organizations.
I mean, something I think Mike makes a really valid point earlier on that we're not going to run out of buildings. There's a lot of buildings there, and the retrofit market for this technology must be huge. But what I wanted to look at was for new build projects, is smart building technology now a sort of de facto the standard, or are there still some maybe that you're kind of slightly baffled that they're not going down this route? You're shaking your head there.
I'm very baffled.
Oh, really?
But I think it also, this comes at it from two directions, right? We're very much sat here looking at this from a technology point of view.
Yeah.
There is also the property and construction perspective, which is a very, very different industry. It's very well entrenched in, this is what we've always done, this is what we've always got. And so there is a lot of mindset change that's also required on that side of the fence as well. And I think it also comes down to how these things are procured. So we're still in this kind of mindset of, siloed procurement, even for, AV versus BMS versus everything else. And actually that's where the role that you're describing there, Danny, is that there needs to be that kind of umbrella, both from a consultancy and a design aspect, but then also from an integration and implementation perspective. And that is going to require people to change their commissioning habits. It changes actually how you do the integration. It means you need different sign-off points, because you can't all just hurtle towards PC like everyone used to do with 5 different trades all in racks trying to get their bit done. Actually, they all need to get their bit done, and then there's the bit on top of it to actually make it all work together. I think the other thing that we're seeing more generally is there's a kind of divide happening where you're getting very data-driven projects, which is this whole kind of data is the new oil, we're going to get all these amazing insights out, whatever. And those that have, as we've mostly talked about, I think probably due to our backgrounds and where we're coming from, is experience-led. And actually I think those two types of projects are going to end up being quite different. They may also end up needing quite different skill sets. I actually think the experience is going to be a lot more successful than the other.
But when you take into account where we're migrating to smart cities, we have to realise that the population growth that's going to explosion that's going to happen over the next 20 years, these people are not going to live in the suburbs. They're going to live in urbanisations, going to live in the city. So smart cities, smart buildings go hand in hand. And I would suggest maybe to Kristian that it's the same, which is there's not enough consultants that are comfortable articulating. So you are a rare breed. So migrating strong consultants with strong integrators, I think, is key. And furthermore, what's happening is we're seeing, to your point, if we get the ecosystem right, that means that architect, GCs, contractors, consultants and integrators will work fundamentally closer than they've ever done in the past. This is a sea change, but it's also, when you look at the predictive analytics and AI amongst all of this, the way that buildings will be used, consumed and utilised for a whole manner of reasons, but more importantly, the way that people will collaborate and use those buildings is changing. The building looks the same. The tools and the functionality is changing beyond all recognition. We have to realise that, and I think that's fundamental to our industry.
That seems like a perfect point to end on. Love that. Nice soundbite there, Danny, thank you. Many thanks to Kristian, Danny and Mike for coming. We hope you enjoyed that one. There's plenty more panel discussions on our video channels. Please check them out, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.